All right. Hi, I'm Tracy with Legacy Woodworking Machinery. Today, we're with Robert from Texas, and he's up here helping his son move into a place, and so decided to stop in and say hello. So we thought we'd take this opportunity to kind of learn a little bit about what he's doing with CNC and how we got here. So, Robert, why don't you say hi?
Hi.
There we go. All right, so I'm just going to ask him a couple questions, and you can kind of give us some feedback. My first question is, Robert, what did you do before you got into CNC?
Well, I'm an engineer by trade, and my specialty has been reliability. So if something breaks, you call maintenance. You call me if you don't want it to break. You know, you want it to last 100 years, you call me, and we set it up so that it'll be taken care of and they won't break it.
Excellent. That sounds like it's pretty important when you go to buy a CNC, probably, huh?
Oh yeah, it's a lot of fun. It was an interesting career.
So how did you get from engineering into the CNC world?
Well, when I was just barely old enough to walk, my dad loved woodworking. He was a doctor and his hobby was woodworking. And so because he was interested, I was interested, and it just grew from there.
Oh yeah? So did you have any experience with CNC in the past, or did you just start off scratch, or what's your path?
Well, I started out doing everything, with a table saw and a drill press and, the standard woodworking tools. And I got interested in grandfather clocks, and you have to have an awful lot of jigs and fixtures to make a clock, with a table saw and a router table. And I tried it, and you can make simple stuff, but I wanted to up the level of skill. And that was when I met you back in the middle 90s, and you were selling the ornamental mills.
Right.
And I bought an ornamental mill with the sole purpose of building some kitchen cupboards. And they turned out really nice, and then I thought, well, okay, time to up the level of the game. And so I got interested in CNC. I saw how you had put a power feed on the side of the ornamental mill, and I saw, because I worked in refineries and big manufacturing plants, I saw their automation and I knew what they could do, and I was just looking around waiting for something less than $250,000 so that I could buy it and use it. And then after 10 or 12 years of waiting, the parts to make a CNC using stepper motors and the cam started to come into play, and it all became available as parts. So I built my own CNC and had some success and a lot of failures, and because it was one person working on Friday nights and Saturdays, it just got discouraging after maybe 10 years or so. And then that was about the time you came out with the Maverick and I can't remember some of those earlier models. Artisan, I think it was.
Yeah. The Artisan.
And I started watching. I had already had your ornamental mill, and so I started watching really, really closely. And I looked at Laguna, I looked at some of these others, and the attractive part to me was that you had the vertical, the horizontal, and the lathe workstations in one machine.
All three CNC in one system, right?
One system. Yeah. Now, if you're a production plant, that's probably not useful. But a hobbyist, that's powerfully useful. And I looked at that and I thought, now I can make clocks with this.
You can do virtually anything you can dream of. We say a lot of times the professional might be specific in one operation, but there are a lot of professionals, especially furniture builders, that want to be able to do everything. And that's really where we came up with the idea for the 3 workstations, because we don't want to be limited by just one possibility. So yeah, you can be a professional and own an ornamental or a CNC as well.
Oh yeah, and the accuracy is astounding. If you make a 1/2-inch hole with a 1/2-inch tenon, they're so accurate they won't go together. But if you make the tenon 3,000 smaller, it slides together like a hand in a glove.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay, so your plan is to build grandfather clocks.
That was the sole purpose of buying the CNC. I thought maybe I could upgrade the cabinets or do some fun stuff like that, but the motivation was to build grandfather clocks. And my wife always teases me that I'm artistic, and here the other day she said, I think you're a little bit autistic, and I said, you mean artistic? And she says, no. So I wanted to up the level of my game, and so I bought a 4x8 automatic tool change.
Okay. So you bought it for woodworking, specifically for the grandfather clocks.
Yes.
But I understand it's taken a little bit different path. Is that right?
Well, the CNC was sitting in my garage, or not my garage, on the driveway. We were taking the crate off, we were getting ready to push it into the garage, and I know a lot of people, and I've been friends with a lot of people, and some of them work in refineries and manufacturing and government jobs, and they started seeing this and they said, what can you do with this? And I said, if I can think of it, I can do it. You know, if my imagination can come up with how to hold it and how to cut it, I can do it. And so they started asking me to do things. And I still haven't done the clock. So actually, I'm so busy with their jobs that I'm not cutting wood.
Okay, Robert, so you wanted to do woodworking with the grandfather clock, but I understand it took a different path. So tell us a little bit about some of the materials and the tooling that you're working with.
I've been using a lot of plastics. I did a really large, my very first job out of the box, before I even got to cut a piece of wood, was 8,000 pieces of plastic. And I used a 1/2-inch end mill. I actually went over to my metalworking tool and stole it out of that, and I used it to cut 8,000. Well, there's 5 holes, so 40,000 holes in 8,000 pieces of plastic.
So was that profitable for you?
Extremely.
That's what we like to hear, right? All right.
The only reason I did it, I don't want to get into work. I retired. I don't want to start another business. But they offered me so much money that I couldn't. I mean, it was more than I made in a couple of years as an engineer. And I just looked at that and I said, man, I'm retired. I can't turn this down.
Well, if it keeps coming, maybe you won't retire as much as you want to.
And then we got into gasket material. If you know what Garlock 2000 is, you know.
What tools do you use for that?
We use almost exclusively a drag knife. I tried using one that was 3D printed. It just simply couldn't do it. It snapped on the first gasket. So I bought a Donic drag knife.
Familiar, I have one too. I just haven't been able to use it yet.
And the machining on it looks really good, but I bought, I wasn't aware, or I didn't know to pay attention to buy, the 1/4 inch or the 1/2 inch. I didn't know that I needed to pay attention, so I didn't. So I bought the 1/4 inch. I used it for about 10 gaskets and it broke. And so I called Donic and I said, hey, I bought this. I used it on this, and I said I need to buy the 1/2 inch because it broke. And they quizzed me about it, and they said, well, you pay the shipping to send it back to us, and let us look at it. We'll get back with you. And about 4 or 5 days later, I had a brand new drag knife.
Wow!
So I can't say enough good about them.
That's service, right?
Oh yeah. It's customer service was kind of like yours. It's through the roof. So I've probably cut a couple hundred, more than that, 400 or 500 gaskets. So the nesting feature is absolutely incredible. It works. So all the waste material, before it becomes waste, I cut little gaskets out of the middle of the big ones. I sell the big ones and just wait for someone to ask for the little ones, because that's totally free to me.
Awesome. I like that. That's a good approach. So it sounds to me like you haven't done any advertising. You don't have a website. You don't do any of this. People saw your machine to begin with, and
it's just been word of mouth from there.
I imagine you have a pretty good network because of your business and you've been able to plug into.
Oh yeah. I think the success is primarily reliability in the refineries and the rubber plants and all of that. You meet hundreds of machine shops and hundreds of suppliers, and they all talk.
Robert, the last thing we really want to know is probably where next? What are your plans?
Well, I have proven to myself with this machine that I am limited by my imagination. That's the limiting factor. It doesn't require a lot of tools. Some of these bigger projects where I'm hogging out a lot of material, I need 1/2-inch end mills. But because the CNC can spiral down and you can program it to do whatever you want to do, a few thousandths here, a few thousandths there is nothing. It doesn't even pay attention to it. So my goal is to eventually get into woodworking and quit being in business.
You want to get back to making the grandfather clocks?
I want to make the grandfather clocks, and I've got so many things. My mind just doesn't stop. I've got all these projects I want to do, and the work is getting in the way.
Well, hopefully you'll get some time to work on your own projects. That's always the dream, right? That's the purpose you bought it in the first place.
That's why I bought it.
All right, excellent. Well, it's a pretty exciting story. I was really a pleasure to talk with Robert and kind of learn his story and what he's been doing and the success that he's been able to find doing his CNC. That's exciting stuff.
It's different.
Yeah, definitely different. Not much of a retirement yet, though, right?
Oh, I don't know. I took 5 weeks off to just come and drive around. So
that's okay because you can do it on your terms, right?
That's right. Yeah,
excellent.
I'm not hurting any of the customers, so no, it's been interesting. It's been pleasurable. I've enjoyed working with Legacy Woodworking. Their customer service has been incredible.
Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that. Robert, been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Not a problem.